So yeah, today's workplace really depends on having highly motivated people who work together to get great things done. And the question then becomes, how do we actually do that? You know, the new ways of working, new ways of leading thing, how do we do that? And in 2012, I stumbled upon the book Turn the Ship Around. And it was like, aha, here are some tools. And since then, I've been working closely with 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗹𝗲 on intent-based leadership. And it is a way where we can move a culture, if you will, from sort of asking for permission and waiting to intent and action. And it also happens to be a highly motivating way of working. So this way of leading, if you will, fits beautifully with Agile, so that we can get the full benefits out of Agile ways of working. And today I'm going to share some of those practices, the principles of intent-based leadership, and then also some hacks, if you will. So some fairly simple ways that we can involve and engage people and get great things done. So yes, a little plug. Yeah, okay, that was the very little plug. So, my journey in this, my background is actually not in IT. It is in communication and leadership and change. And in 2006, I was at a board meeting, and it happened to be one of the Agile gurus at that time. Was sitting on the board with me, and she said, "Jenny, are you ready for a new challenge?" I was like, yeah, who would say no to that? And she invited me to a think tank in London about Agile. I had no clue what Agile was. And from there, it was just like, oh, all the light bulbs went off around, this is amazing. We get people together to understand together and plan together and validate together and reflect together, and they take ownership of the work. This is so cool. And then I started working with that full time. And I came up against a lot of resistance because I was working mostly with upper management in organizations around Agile ways of working and why Agile works and how they can help their team members to get the full benefits out of Agile. But they were like, no, we just want 100 Scrum teams by summer. It's like, no, that's not why we do Agile. So I thought, now I need to find some proof. So I did what we all do. I Googled, why does Agile work? Nothing came up. So, all right, I knew it was something around human nature, Agile, ways of working, and came upon a study in neural leadership. So the neuroscience around how we think in the workplace and what we can do differently to increase people's feelings of motivation. I was like, yes, now I have the proof why Agile works, and I can point to the neuroscience behind it, and yet that still was not enough. And then read 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗹𝗲's book, Turn the Ship Around, and then it was like, aha, I see, I have a package now with intent-based leadership. So how can we give control, which is what we need to do in Agile, right? We need to push the authority to make decisions to the people who are closest to the information. So that sort of package has really helped people in organizations to get the full benefits out of Agile ways of working. So I'll share both intent-based leadership and some of the neuroscience behind it. And I really hope that if you have any questions along the way or challenges that you're like, oh, this is really, if I could have an idea about this, please just, raise your hand or interrupt me. So that is perfectly fine. Okay. All right. So the principles of intent-based leadership, they're very simple. They're easy, actually. Easy to remember, maybe not so easy to do, but they're very common sense, and they tie into how we are motivated. It is essentially about increasing people's feeling of influence or autonomy. connectedness, this feeling of safety, and then understanding how we get to change, and that is by acting our way to new thinking. So these 6 principles are what I will share a little more about today. All right. Empowerment. How many of you have seen KPIs with empowerment? Thou shalt empower your people. That doesn't work. So this is where the English is like, no. If I have the power to empower you, you are not empowered, right? Because I decide if you're empowered or not. That's crazy. That's not what we want. We want to create a space where people feel empowered. So where we can get great things done. So we need to sort of turn things around, and when we do that, leaders are supporting and encouraging people along the way, facilitating the decision making, helping people to come to those decisions. And I'm going to show you some tools for that. So the first of these principles is to push the authority for making decisions to people who have the information. And this fits with SAFE, if you will, Scaled Agile Framework, the decentralizing decision making. How do we do this though, right? So we're here and we can see that we need to do something in a different kind of way. It's like, do I need to bring it to the change management board to make this decision, or can I just make this decision, or can we do it in the team? So it's like, no, we can't make this decision. So then it goes up in the organization and we wait and we wait and we wait and maybe get a little pissed off because it's like, well, why should they make the decision? They don't even know what this is about. And then it comes down back to us where it's like, okay, I don't think this is the right thing to you. Do you think this is the right thing to do? Yeah, but they said so, so we're doing it. Crazy, right? Crazy. It doesn't even make any sense, right? Common sense. So we want to push the authority to make those decisions to the people who have the information. It's not so easy to do though, right? We need to tune giving that control based on competence and clarity of our people. So it's not easy for us. So when I talk about leadership or leaders, it's leaders at every level in an organization. And again, this is where English is good, because leadership and management, 2 different things. 2 completely different things. We have leaders at every level in an organization. Leadership is just different than management. So when I talk about leadership, it's leaders at every level in the organization. And when leaders need to sort of give up control or practicing giving up control, it can be really hard. It's actually harder for managers. I haven't been struck by the project management gods yet. So it's hard for us. It goes against how we are wired, because our brains have a bias for staying in control. It helps us to focus. The thing is, our brains also have a bias for having autonomy and influence and being able to make decisions without having somebody sort of micromanaging us. So there's a balance here around how we give control and tuning it based on competence and clarity. Let's see how this goes here. Okay. So are you able to see it back there? This? Okay, great. All right. So on the y-axis here, it says give control to others. And on the x, it's competence and clarity of others. So if we need to tune control, how much control we give based on competence and clarity, because, yeah, we want to feel that we're staying in control, but we also want to be able to practice giving up control so that our people can make the decisions that they want to make and are most likely better at making than we are. So what do we do first? Do we give control first? We either have to go up or we have to go to the right. Which do we do first? Okay. Yeah? What makes you say that? You don't have to, if I'm putting you on the spot, you don't have to say.
No, it's fine. Well, if I have control over something, I need to be confident and I need to have clarity about it, because then otherwise I make uninformed decisions.
Okay, so you're thinking about yourself. What if you are giving control to team members? So their competence and clarity. So you're giving control to your team members, let's just say, or a team member. And then we need to know about their competence and clarity. And do they understand? So technical competence. Do they have the skills? And organizational clarity. Do they understand where we're going? So let me put that up here. Yeah. So those are the pillars that giving control is based on. And if we look at then, what do we do first? Do we give control, or do we make sure that people have competence and clarity? Which do we do first? Yeah.
I think you do it in lockstep, right? You give a little bit of control and watch if the competence is present, and then you give a bit more control and so on, right? So it's probably something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not just the one-way thing.
You get a prize. Yes. Yes. So that's right. We give control first, because not everybody's a control freak like I am, but I am a recovering, in recovery control freak, I can tell you. And when things go wrong, especially, it's like, oh, I should have just done it myself. It would have been right. And then my instinct is, next time I'm taking it in, I'm going to do it myself. Because remember what happened? They screwed up. So we need to give control first, and then we see where the gaps are. So maybe then something happens, and we need to fill that gap. And I have worked with a few leaders who maybe are a little like me in the control freak gene, and giving this control is like, I don't want to give control until I know for sure people have the competence and clarity. It's like, how are you ever going to know? You are never going to know until you give control. And the sooner you give control, the sooner you can close the gap if something goes wrong. And sometimes this big sort of amount of control, that's too much. So we shrink the change. We do a little bit. It's like, okay, I give a little control. Nothing bad happened. Okay, good. Then I can give a little more. Okay, so far so good. This giving control thing is okay. And then I give a little more control. Nah, okay, something happened here. Okay, all right, but I've had 3 successful experiences giving control, and that helps me feel like I'm still in control. And then something happened. Okay, is it competence, is it clarity? We need to fill that gap. Most of the time, at least that we have seen sort of informal surveys, about 75–80% of the time when something goes wrong, it's because people didn't really understand what it was they were supposed to do. It wasn't that they didn't have the competence to do it. I mean, you've got talented people working in your organizations. So of course you've got competency. The clarity though, the understanding what it is, why we're doing it, that's usually when something goes wrong. Anyway, so yes, so we keep sort of doing this, as you said, in lockstep. And it is a wonderful way to sort of increase both clarity and competency in an organization and make it easier for us to give control. Because what happens if we give too much control? What if we go all the way up? So I can...
Stress.
Yeah, go ahead, say.
Stress.
Stress, yep, there's stress.
There's worries.
Worries, yeah. It's chaos, right? People are running around sort of doing stuff that they don't really know what they're doing. It's like, oh, this is not good, right? And this is the worry that we have as leaders too, of giving too much control. Are they gonna run around like cowboys and just whatever? Ugh. The problem that we see more often though is over here, not giving control to people who do have the competence and clarity. And then what do we have?
frustrated.
Yeah, frustration, yeah. I mean, people, today especially, I think I've done a really good job raising my son not to put up with the crap that I put up with early in my career. I mean, it's great, right? We're not putting up with that stuff anymore because there are plenty of organizations that are giving control, that are getting the influence of the people who are closest to the information to make the decisions themselves, or at least inform the decision making. And that's the kind of motivating environment that we want to work in. So people who are over here with the competence and clarity but don't get sort of the control, they leave. They don't want to stay there. It's not a nice place to be. All right. Yeah.
Yes. It reminds me so much of the flow graphic from 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗹𝗲.
Yep.
It
Yes.
is it, or how much does that play into it?
Yeah. So tying into our brain here. So I don't know that, you know, in terms of the flow and our thinking, if you will, but this definitely creates an environment where flow can happen, right? Because you're making it safe for people. You give enough control, or some control, and then you see where the competence and clarity gaps are, and you help fill those gaps, and you keep going, and it creates this very psychologically safe environment, which enables us to be able to be in flow in the work that we do. So actually, I really like that sort of comparison to the environment around that. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, this all sounds like I, as the person who's currently empowered, giving something away and it's all on me.
Yeah.
But isn't it rather a conversation with the other people also?
Yeah.
Where they are and
Yeah.
what's the next step? Okay.
You bet, you bet. Yes. So there are plenty of situations where people are just waiting to be told what to do, right? That they don't come in with intent, this I intend to. The I intend to is where we are, you know, not asking for permission, we are sharing what we intend to do. So being sort of transparent, thinking out loud. So that if there is more information, it gives whoever you're sharing your intent with the opportunity to ask questions or to say, oh, okay, so if I say I intend to have a meeting with the steering committee, maybe my boss is like, whoa, 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 you know, the control thing. And instead of telling me, no, you can't do that, I need to be there, I'm the one, instead, no, okay, say more about that. What kind of meeting is it, or whatever. And that is a way for the leader, if you will, to feel safe about it. When we're in a situation where people are not taking responsibility, where they are waiting for permission, because maybe they worked in a previous job where it was just like, oh, this is, every time I stick my neck out, I get it chopped off, and I've been punished for sort of taking responsibility. That makes us less likely to take responsibility in an organization. And in that case, as a leader, we need to help people feel more safe around taking responsibility, and I'm going to share a way to do that in a moment. This I intend to. Dopamine is released in our brain, so that's the reward neurotransmitter in our brain. When you're feeling like, yes, that's dopamine in your brain. And when we say, I intend to, we have more autonomy and more influence and feel more motivated, and it's because of that release of dopamine. And it enables our leaders or managers to ask questions about what it is that we're doing. So we increase our competency and maybe our clarity along the way. And it is thinking out loud. So I intend to is a really magical phrase. I don't know, I intend to in German, but yeah, you all know that. Oops, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well,
I think it's restarting.
There we
Here
go. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. I have some little cards for you, and I'll put them here at the end of my talk where you can take this. It's a little cuter than maybe my slide. So this is a way, if you will, using language. And on one side are statements, and on the other side are the invitations. And the idea with this is that when we hear people saying, well, just tell me what to do. No, I'm not, no, you're the boss. You tell me what you want me to do next. As the boss, you can go over here, and I usually, in that case, jump up a couple to what do you think he should do? What do you think we should do? And if they're like, no, I don't get paid to think here. You're the boss, you are the one who tells me what to do. So that's a clue that they don't feel safe. So we want to increase the sense of safety around this. So we go down another level. Okay, all right, I get it. Tell me what you see. What's happening around here? What are other people saying? What's your previous experience in a similar situation? Okay, great. And then, based on that, what do you think we should do? And if they're still like, no, I'm not going to tell you what I think. Okay, thank you for that information. I'll make the decision on that one based on your input. And then the next time they come to you saying, tell me what I should do. All right, what do you think we should do? And hopefully, over time, people feel more safe and will move sort of up this ladder, if you will, so that we get to a place where we're saying, I intend to. And yes, we can go farther up the ladder, but I can tell you that I intend to, on both sides, is a much safer from a control point of view for our brains. So I would rather have people around me saying I intend to, rather than saying, and this is my, recovering control freak thing, saying I've been doing or I've done, 3 meetings with the steering committee. I'd be like, oh crap. Maybe I would have liked to have known about that. It makes me worry as a manager or a leader, if you will. So I intend to is kind of the magic point for communication and staying in control when we think about how our brains work. Yeah. When we're in a situation where maybe somebody is not competent or has the clarity, but yet they're running around, I intend to do this, I intend to do that, this is where you can ask questions. So, and I would come farther down and say, okay, before you do that, tell me what you see happening around. Okay, great, and what does that make you think? And what do you think I'm thinking right now? So that you can feel more in control, and if there are truly some competence and clarity issues, then you can close that gap right there before something has been done. So this is a tool based on language, these statements and invitations. And the more you use it, the easier it becomes, I can tell you. So reality shows, oh yeah, this is really, you can listen for what people are saying and figure out, okay, where are they here on the ladder? Yeah. Okay, I want to share a little hack. So because we want to sort of push the authority to people who have the information and tune control based on clarity and competence, a way to do this and sort of involve and engage people through change is to look at, okay, is there some challenge or a problem that normally you would make or a higher level in the organization would make? Okay, so in this instance, it's about cutting the budget or saving costs. So, and this is a real life situation here, and at first glance, the upper management had all these ways of like cutting the cost, and I was like, no, wait. The people who are doing the work will have better ideas than you do. And fortunately, they were a really open group. They were like, yeah, oh, no, of course. So here, this is the challenge. These are the constraints. And these are the questions that are open. And then what ideas do you have? So you can use this hack, if you will, for any of the challenges that maybe typically you would make decisions about or others higher up in the organization would make decisions. So it's a really great way, and it creates safety too, because you're able to put sort of a box around it. These are the open decisions, these are the decisions that are already made, and then you get the influence and contribution of those other people, and when you do that, they own it. They feel ownership, and they take responsibility for it. So, and when we're involved in changes like this, our brains don't resist it. So we may not agree 100%, but the science is really clear on this, that we accept it because we've had that influence.
But, sorry,
Yeah.
what if the people say, well, you're the boss, you should know, it's not my problem, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
It's your
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have too many people running around saying that. And this is where facilitation comes in, because there's something about making it safe for people to do that. So you can facilitate a workshop as a leader to get those ideas out. Here's the challenge, here are the decisions that are open, and then do brainstorming where maybe the first things are anonymous. So maybe it's face-to-face and we can write it on little cards and stick it in a hat or a bowl or something, and then take those ideas out one at a time, so people aren't like, oh, that's her stupid idea or whatever. Instead, it feels really safe to do that. So there are ways that you can do it using facilitation to get this kind of stuff out, and to help break down that feeling of, you're the boss, you make the decisions, I just do what you tell me to do. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I've been talking a lot about making it safe. This is another one of the intent-based leadership principles. And the foundation of high-performing teams is psychological safety. So we need to make it safe for people to say, I don't know, let's figure it out together, or I made a mistake, or I'm under stress, or whatever it is. So the safety isn't so much about comfort, if you will, it is about feeling safe to try things and do things in a different kind of way, or to say and be your authentic self. So we need to make it safe for people. And this comes from the work of Amy Edmondson. If you haven't read her book, The Fearless Organization, I can highly, highly recommend it. So she's one of the leading experts on psychological safety. And I love this sort of matrix here because it fits so well with intent-based leadership around the make it safe, if you will. So psychological safety here, high psychological safety, we have sort of this comfort zone. Yeah, that's great. And we're running businesses. And comfort is not enough for our brains, actually. So there's not a lot of dopamine being released in the brain when we're comfortable. And dopamine is what we need to stay focused and come up with innovative and creative ideas. So we need the combination of high performance standards and psychological safety in order for our brains to get to sort of that optimal creativity, if you will. And that's where we have the learning and high performance organization. So having high performance standards, quality or ways of working, ways of leading, all of those things. And my advice, don't let upper management set the performance standards. Take them and see how they fit with your teams. And maybe you're doing this already in like team working agreements or something like that, where you talk about performance standards or in definition of done or whatever it is. So we need this combination. Okay, so fixing the environment. We cannot fix people. I'm on my third husband, so I finally learned this lesson. Yes, but as leaders, we can influence the environment. So sometimes it's actually the physical environment, although the last 2 years it hasn't been so much of that. Here I'm talking about, I can't tell you how many sort of agile implementations that I've worked on where management is like, no, we can't get more whiteboards. No, we can't have dedicated space. No, we can't have Post-its. We need to get the cheap ones that fall off the wall, right? I mean, it's just crazy, crazy, crazy. With COVID, oh my goodness. Teams whiteboard, that's good enough for collaboration. We don't need anything like Miro or whatever. It's just like, So fixing the actual environment and then fixing the sort of figurative environment. And this is where language comes in. And the power of language to influence our sort of thoughts and action and how we think about the space in which we work. So I've got some things around language here. And I narrowed it down to 3 because I thought, oh, I could talk about this for a really long time. I've got a long list. This is my personal list of things not to say. And it's based both on the neuroscience and also in how we can affect the environment or fix the environment so that people feel more safe and are willing to sort of jump in with their ideas and maybe make decisions. So the first, resources and FTEs. Okay, I know this is all in English. Maybe there's a German equivalent, I'm thinking.
Resources and FTEs.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Quite the same.
I mean, think back to when you were, little. Did you ever want to be a resource when you grew up? I mean, and then I hear, yeah, but that's how our accounting people talk about it. So we're just using their language. It's like accounting people are smart. They can actually use people, right? So dehumanizing language and the effect that it has on our brains is that first it's subtle, and over time it builds a stronger connection that I don't matter. I am a number on a spreadsheet, and that number can go away, right? I'm not the talented, valuable person with the competencies needed to get great things done in this organization. I become a number on a spreadsheet. That is not how we create safety, right? That's not how we show we value people in an organization. So dehumanizing language. They and them. So it maintains silo thinking. And this, in the beginning, when you sort of change the language, and I'm going to show you what to say instead, but you can guess it's we and us. In the beginning, when we start changing our language around that, it feels super awkward, right? Because I mean, our colleagues sitting over in the business side or whatever, over time, it becomes a natural way of talking about our colleagues sitting on the business side or whatever. So that we are able then to break that connection and think of it as a we or an us. Oh, here we go again. I think it'll come back. So, but.
Coffee break.
But. I hate the buts. Right? So it puts people on the defensive. So the minute is like, yeah, but it's like you negated or everything before that was not actually good, right? It's like, okay, now I'm waiting for the but. Not good. Okay, so what to say instead? Obviously, resources, FTEs, people, talented people. I'm the irritating person in organizations when people start saying resources, especially the first time, in large groups. I especially like to do it. It's like, excuse me, resource? What do you mean by resource? Yeah, our people. Oh, you mean your talented people that you have working here? No, okay. Yeah. So it makes such a difference. And yeah. We and us, and then and. So instead of but, just say and. Yes, you can have another point. But if we say and if we say and, right? Then it builds on it instead of tearing down what was said before. So and is a simple sort of change there. Okay. All right, so don't be good, get better. our brains like to become even better at what we do. Our status is one of the intrinsic motivators that we have. This feeling of how good are we? How valued do we feel in the organization? And when we get better at stuff, dopamine is released in our brains. So this also ties into that performance standard stuff. Being good or good enough, that's not good enough for our brains. We want to get better. So Agile's focus on improvement is fantastic, right? It actually sets time aside, if you're using it, to get better, to focus on ways that we can get better. And this toward away continuum, we're on this continuum all the time. So our brains are constantly looking at how do we minimize danger and maximize reward? Is this going to be good for us? Or is this going to be bad for us? So understanding that how we talk about things can also nudge people more toward the reward side here. And when we talk about resources and FTEs, this pushes us over here. Or but, it pushes us over here. And this is where our limbic systems, where our fight, flight, or freeze is, all the survival mechanisms are in the limbic system. This is where we close in and we become maybe fearful or angry. Black and white thinking, we don't see as many possibilities because we're protecting ourselves over here. This is not a safe space to be. So we want to nudge people over in this direction. So the more we say people instead of resources, or and instead of but, or we and us, or talk about, hey, you know, there's this great SAFE training that Rickard is doing, and Robert's got some cool stuff happening, and I think this would be a great opportunity to learn from some really smart people who have a lot of experience, and then you can come back and share it with the rest of us. Yes, I want to go to that training, right? But if my manager is like, well, you know, TechTalk is doing this training, and I think you don't know anything about SAFE, so you should go to that, right? Then we're over here thinking, no, I'm not, no. Oh, you're going to force me to go? Well, you can force me to go, but you can't force me to pay attention, right? This is not what we want. And it's so simple. It's just a little like tweak to how we talk about things. So using language can nudge us over to this space where we're focused on improving, getting better, instead of proving, I'm so smart about SAFE, I don't need to go to no stupid TechTalk SAFE course. And over here I'm like, I can learn from these cool guys who have a lot of experience. So I'm focused on improving rather than on proving. And that's the space that we want to have so that we get better. All right. So act your way to new thinking is the last of the principles. We cannot think our way to new acting. We have to act our way. The brain is, just how it works, right? We can't sort of analyze things forever, think about it, and then think, no, now we're going to change. We wrote the long, change management plan or whatever it is. Here you go. That's not how we change. We actually have to do something. So we decide to do something, we do it, we feel reward around doing it, and then we repeat. And we do that over and over and over again until we build the connection in our brain that says, yes, this way of working, this way of leading, whatever it is that you're working on changing, is it beneficial for us, for me? I feel dopamine, I feel reward in my brain when I work this way or when I lead this way. So understanding that the only way to really change is to do something. So, and just yesterday actually, I was working with a group of people who, are looking to do some new ways of planning in the organization. And I understand this is a big change for them. They like the Gantt charts. There's really a lot of Gantt charts. And everybody in every small sort of area of the organization has their very own Gantt chart. And guess what? They have dependencies across the areas. And guess what? They don't really talk to each other. Okay, all right. So you're like, yeah, we know we need to do this 90-day planning thing that will reach a lot of benefits, but people are so busy right now. We don't really have time to do things in a different kind of way, and this is going to take so much of preparing people and getting the plans ready and doing all this and all this. Yeah, so can't we just like think about this for a little bit before we actually do something? I was like, yeah, you can think about it, and you know what? 3 months from now, 9 months from now, 2 years from now, you'll still be thinking about it. The only way that we can actually make a change happen is to do something, even though it feels risky. So this is where you all come in, right? To make people feel safer about trying something new. Creating that environment where people are safe to say, I screwed up, or I don't know, help me, or whatever it is. That's how we get to change. So mindset shift depends on these things, and this is the physical evidence, if you will, of mindset shifts. We can actually see a willingness to experiment, the focus on progress over time, and then that desire to learn from others. And that's what we want, right, for that learning and high performance organization. And that's the intent, if you will, of intent-based leadership, is that we get to this, because this is where great things happen in organizations. So I have another hack, maybe a last hack, if you will, an idea around using experiments. How many of you already use experiments in your organizations? Oh, great, wonderful. Yeah, and how do you find that they work? Now I'm going to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Are they real experiments with like hypothesis statements and evaluation criteria and evaluations, formal evaluations, conditions? Maybe, maybe not.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, okay. Sometimes I see sort of fake experiments, like CEOs or senior VPs or say, want something to be done in a certain way, a new way, and say, oh, this will be an experiment. We'll see how it goes. And the intent is good, right? They probably mean it when they say, let's see how it goes, except our experience, or at least my experience with it, is that no, they actually don't see how it goes, and then we're stuck with whatever that decision was. It's like, that's not what I mean by an experiment. So setting up an experiment to implement new ways of working. So a lot of times I'll do this, setting up experiments in teams who are maybe struggling with maybe a certain part of Agile, for example. Maybe they're not doing retrospectives, or maybe they're not doing their demos because nobody's coming. So then we set up an experiment around how we can make it better. How can we improve? How can we help people act their way to new thinking? So what's the hypothesis statement? What is it that we're testing? What's the result we hope for out of this? And if it's a demo, stakeholders are not coming, maybe it's, okay, we want to change the way we do demos so that our stakeholders actually attend and give us the feedback that we need. That could be a simple hypothesis statement. And then the evaluation criteria. All right, how do we know we're on the right track? Can we answer it with a yes or no question? Let's see, are stakeholders coming? Yes or no? Did we send out, pre-stuff so they know what to expect? Yes or no? So looking at what are those evaluation criteria? What are the conditions that need to make this happen? I don't know, maybe the team doesn't have time set aside to prepare the demo. So that could be a condition, that the team prioritizes time to prepare whatever they need to prepare. And then the length of the experiment needs to be long enough to actually get data that you can validate. Otherwise, this doesn't work. So we're doing a 90-day planning experiment, and if we only did for those of you who do PI planning or big room planning or 90-day planning, I mean, you know the first time that you get so many people together, whether it's face-to-face or if it's online, it's a little chaotic. And if you've never experienced before, maybe your head's exploding, like, why are all these people here? And this is really a lot of talking and it's overwhelming. So if we only did data on one of those, failure, I'm guessing. So we need to do it enough so that we can actually validate what it is. And depending on what your experiment is, it could be, 1 week to a year. But experiments are, I think, a really underused way of helping implement change in a safe way. Okay. Alrighty. Maybe before I close, I want to sort of open up for questions. What questions do you have so far about what you heard? And because it is really difficult for our brains to switch from listening to, coming up with questions, talk to each other a little bit. Somebody that's sitting close to you or whatever about what you heard. What makes sense to you? What are you like, no, I don't know, or how could this fit in my organization, or whatever. So just have a little chat, and then we'll see if there's anything you want to share. So what were you discussing? What questions came up, or what thoughts?
Maybe I would like to start.
Okay, just a second. Yeah.
If you talk about making environment safe, so people feel safe, how
Yeah.
do you do that in a temporal organization, like a project, for example? Not
Yeah.
basically in a hierarchical organization, but a temporal organization. How do you achieve that if you do not have disciplinary authority over the people?
Okay.
Temporary, right?
Yeah, so how do you make it safe in sort of a project setup that's just temporary?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. And because you don't have control over what else is happening?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So the best thing to do to start with is to create a relationship in that team. So between the people. So that people trust each other. They don't have to like each other, but they need to respect each other. And in that kind of a setup, the basis, if you will, maybe the starting point that I use in that kind of a setup is to make sure the team members know who the other team members are. Because our brains, when we first meet someone, we're trying to figure out, is this person good for me or bad for me? Are they going to stab me in the back, or are they going to support me? How is this going to work? And until we know, it is really hard for our brains to focus, because we're over in that protect ourselves sort of place where, okay, I heard about this guy or whatever, and now I'm just waiting for it to come kind of thing. So whatever you can do to help cement the relationships, and I'm not talking about going into the woods and like climbing trees and falling back and people catch each other. Please. The best way actually is to have a challenge that is within the team that we solve together. That is the very best team building activity. So if you can shrink something down into something smaller in the project so you get a quick win in the team, and they're all sort of working together and you're facilitating that working together, you can create an amazing amount of psychological safety just by doing that. And yeah, I'm sure the rest of you have other ideas. Maybe if you want to share if there's something else that you have done. Yeah? Is that
No. I was thinking about your suggestion, yeah. I was just thinking about this idea of having a challenge, solving it together.
Yeah.
It should have purpose, right? It shouldn't be an artificial challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our brains reject the artificial stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? What else did you talk about? Yeah.
My brain is still with the and but. Because yesterday was the last time I used but. Yet I also have seen people who have learned that you shouldn't use but you should end.
Yeah.
You should end. And you really see or hear when they are talking that they mean the word "and" as a but. Is it that simple that this already helps, or do you have any tips to get out of the but mindset?
Yeah. So over time, I hope that people's sort of skepticism about the "and" changes. So, and the only way that it can change is to see that it truly is an and not a but. So, time is the only thing that I have seen work with that. Yeah, and maybe tone of voice. I don't know.
I would like to add something to the "and" and the "but",
Yeah.
because I like to use it in workshops to make it like a game in the beginning.
Great.
To whatever, say we do something together, we make a party or whatever, and you only have to, you're not allowed to say anything but "and". So if someone has an idea, you have to start with "and blah blah blah".
Yeah.
So that they have this in their mind when we start to think about other things, to whatever, to think about what's in the future or whatever. It's important to have this mindset, and I think it helps.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah, thank you. What else? Yeah.
We were talking about this letter.
Yeah.
Not the letter, is about this diagram.
Yeah.
And giving a little bit of control and checking clarity and competence. And I find it really hard to split off little bits of control. And you said something similar. Have you any good tips for that?
What makes it difficult to split off control? I don't know if you heard little bits of control. What's making it difficult?
Well, for once, I'm having a hard time defining what I actually do, making it so specific that I can say, okay, and this little bit of what I do, somebody else could do.
Aha,
for example.
okay.
There's a lot of reactive work that I do.
Okay.
I'm a software architect,
Yeah.
and I do proactive work, but I also do a lot of reactive work, and I can't find the time or the space to say, okay, let's take the broader perspective and so on.
Yeah. Are there specific sort of tasks that you're doing where you think, oh, why am I wasting my time on this?
Yeah.
I would start there
Uh-huh.
and see if there's anything in there that you can sort of give to your team to say, look, it doesn't make sense that I'm making these decisions.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Yeah.
That's where I would start, because it might be easier to sort of break off that, whatever the piece is. Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
That would be my
Okay.
suggestion.
Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
One problem for me with give control is to not go into micromanagement also, but like to check in right away and what is your plan and what are you planning to do.
Yeah.
And the other extreme is to give away and then don't check in for months and then see what comes out.
Yeah, that's really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my tip for that is, and I can speak from experience, is to tell whoever is doing the work that you're maybe a little worried about, is it getting done right or whatever, to say, look, it's not you, it's me. I have this need to be in control of this. And when I don't know what's happening, I feel out of control. And my instinct when I feel out of control is to take back control and micromanage. And I so don't want to do that. Can you please help me? And this is what I need. So maybe it's a weekly coffee or whatever, daily, quick, 5 minutes, just a little update on where you are and what you need help with or something like that. And make it really clear that it's not because you want them to report to you. It's because you're just feeling like, all right, I really need to know what's going on. And maybe there's a better way that you can work out with your team or whatever so that they can help you. And with the goal of you being more comfortable. Yeah. And I think showing that vulnerability is definitely, a new way of leading. And that's what we need. And in my experience, the leaders who are showing the most vulnerability, they have the most sort of psychologically safe, high-performing teams. So I think there's some research about that. I see some head nodding. Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you for all your questions and comments too. So you can use the principles and practices of intent-based leadership to help give control and increase competence and clarity in your organizations and build a space where people feel more psychologically safe, where they feel more valued and motivated and more able to work together to get great things done. So thank you so much for being here this morning, and I love Vienna, so thank you.